This is M-Wire, Movie Week in Review. M-Wire is brought to you by Audible.com. Sign up today to get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/geekcastradio. Start today with a free 30-day trial with over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter at audible_com. And now the latest and greatest in movies with M-Wire.
It was brilliant. It was foolproof. It was the perfect crime. But for Miami detectives Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry,
Buenos días, mi amor.
it was the ultimate nightmare.
This was our career bust, which is what, $100 million?
Just do what you do, only faster.
Let's try to do this right. No gunshots, no dead bodies. Well, you know, if I recall correctly, the last couple dead bad guys belong to you. Please, you ain't even trying to compare body counts. Should I keep going all day? I'm out.
Now, this case
We got 72 hours before the FBI and the DEA walk in here and shut us down.
You know, you drive almost slow enough to drive Miss Daisy.
this murder, and this witness
You ain't with the bad guys now. You with the cops.
This is your getaway car? What is this, a family station wagon? Oh my God, you got a baby seat in the back.
are going to put them
Look at you. Look at you. Can you stay focused? What are you talking about? I'm focused. Yeah, focused on all this scattered ass around here.
to the ultimate test. Columbia Pictures presents
Don't be alarmed, we're Negroes.
Oh, man. No, that's too much bass in your voice. That scare white folks.
Martin Lawrence,
We were wondering if we can borrow some brown sugar.
Will Smith,
You see, you something wrong with you. What's up?
this April, the law will be served. Justice will be done.
You forgot your boarding pass.
And boys will be boys. Bad boys. What you gonna do?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Hello and welcome to M-Wire, Movie Week in Review, brought to you by the Geekcaster Radio Network. I'm one of your hosts, T.F. John Mike, and joining me is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hello.
Today we are going to be continuing the 90s flashback in episode 95. We're going to be talking about the Bad Boys franchise. Oh boy. I honestly don't remember if I saw the first film in theaters. I know I didn't see the second one in theaters.
Actually, I knew I didn't see the first one in theaters either. I actually saw the second one before I saw the first one. Strangely enough, I did see Bad Boys 2 in theaters, but actually after that is when I went back to rewatch the first one. So.
I remember the first one. Like I said, I don't remember if I saw it in the theater or not, but I remember once it hit video, VHS, DVD. I don't think in '95 we had DVDs yet, but once it hit media, I remember watching the hell out of that movie because I remember the ad campaign so vividly. They showed two shots in most of the trailers and teasers. It's the shot of the camera coming up from like their down vantage point, and it pans up, and it's Marcus and Mike turning their heads. You know what the shot I'm talking about?
Yeah, Michael Bay loves that shot.
Yeah, it's that shot. It was that shot in the trailers and the teasers, and the shot of Will Smith running with his shirt all the way open. It's like that slow motion shot. I remember that, like, it was just one of those things that I remember that stuff so vividly. And the quotes in this movie, oh my, both of these movies, but the first one, the quotes in that movie, oh my God, it's just some funny stuff. Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually going to be praising Michael Bay in this episode, considering what he's done after these movies.
Yeah, and I remember you talked about the ad campaign. When this first came out, I was, at the time, kind of embarrassing, but I was a huge fan of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So,
I was too, so yeah. It's not embarrassing. I mean, that was the show.
Yeah, and so I remember seeing, Will Smith, and he's trying to be an action star. It was kind of odd, because now you look at that and it's like, of course, but back then he was just this comedian on the sitcom. And Martin Lawrence, the same thing. I think you can kind of see, and as we do both episodes, just how the careers of those two have kind of shifted. Like when it started out, I think they're both nearly at equal playing fields, but as the years have gone on, you see Will Smith has had like this amazing career, while Martin Lawrence has had, not as stellar as a career, but anyways.
He's had a career, but see, his career went in a weird way. Normally when you have a comedian, any comedian, doesn't have to be Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, any comedian, whether they're white, black, purple, alien, whatever, when you have a regular comedian, someone like Jim Carrey, someone like Will Smith, someone that starts out in comedy and then somehow takes a serious turn or has a serious action role kind of turn like Will did, where Will has gone on to do both comedy, like cheesy comedy type stuff, and also very serious roles. Martin, he went that way, but he didn't. He started in comedy. Bad Boys, both films were more action than he'd probably ever seen before. And since then, he's been in these action comedies more so, because these two movies, to me, yes, they are comedies in a way, but they're mainly action. Sure, there's funny lines and stuff like that, but you take this compared to something like National Security, which Martin Lawrence was in, or what's the other one? Oh God, is it the Black Knight that he was in?
He was in that.
Yeah, You take those two films, compare them to these two, those are action comedies, these are action films with comedy in them. And that's the way his career has turned, is he's gone more the route of, hey, I'm still going to be funny, I'm still going to do the funny stuff. And Will Smith has done that too. But Will has adapted to the serious roles.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but there's this theory with Will Smith in his career that he kind of planned it all out, and like how he chose his movies, and like he was very deliberate, the type of films he was in, to try to be the most successful movie star ever. He had the franchise sci-fi film, then he went to the more dramatic roles. Like everything was kind of this mathematical equation, and trying to figure out what roles he would go into. Because he's done things like play Muhammad Ali to playing other dramatic means. He's been nominated for an Oscar. While if you look at Martin Lawrence, like you said, he's not that dynamic as an actor. Like he has to rely far more on the comedy than Will Smith does. Like there hasn't really been a performance in his career where he's really done anything dramatic. He's kind of been limited to things like Big Mama's House and Blue Streak. He was in Death and a Funeral and stuff like that. But them together works really well.
I mean, even if you look at this first film, and I know we're not getting into it just yet because JT has to give us just the facts, but even if you look at this first film and look at the characters of Marcus, Burnett, and Mike Lowry, Marcus is more the hands-on physical comedy type, where Mike is more so he'll say something funny and it'll make you laugh. He doesn't have to do physical comedy, and that's kind of like the way that I see both of them, the actual actors in real life, whereas Martin Lawrence has to rely on the physical comedy or the really, really in-your-face type of comedy. And Will Smith, while he does do that well, he also just can, kind of like the line in the beginning of the movie when they knock on the door. The niggers are here.
Yeah.
Or no, I think that was in the second. The first film was like, we're cops, we're Negro, don't worry, we'll save you, whatever it was when they knocked on the door of the house in the first movie. He has that way of him of just being funny without being physically funny.
Yeah, he's more quippy for sure. He's more sly and charming, while like Martin Lawrence, it's more like he gets a lot of his comedy from degrading himself in a way. Like he's the guy getting shot in the ass. He's the guy that kind of is his pool's exploding on him. He's definitely the person that they kind of, they kind of crap on as much as possible. And that's where he gets a lot of his comedic moments. He has other moments as well, but that seems to be the blunt of them.
Yeah. All right, so let's head it over to JT for Just the Facts. This will be a double feature M-Wire episode. We're going to talk about both films. So let's head it over to JT for Just the Facts on Bad Boys 1.
The movie begins with a daring nighttime robbery by a group of thieves. The thieves execute an ingeniously engineered plan, breaking into a police impound in Miami, Florida, and making off with a couple hundred bricks of cocaine. Said cocaine had been seized in a huge career-making drug bust by narcotic detectives Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry, two lifelong friends who couldn't be more different. Marcus is a henpecked family man, and Mike is a carefree and well-off bachelor. While examining the scene of the crime with their commander, Captain Howard, they are confronted by Captain Sinclair of Internal Affairs. She tells Howard and the two detectives that there was no way the robbery could have occurred unless they had inside help, and that they only have a couple of days to recover the drugs before the entire narcotics division is shut down. Mike's first move is to talk to Max, a former girlfriend who works as an escort, asking her to be on the lookout for anyone who is newly rich and spending a lot of cash. Unfortunately, Max and her roommate Julie go out on a date that evening, having been hired by Eddie Dominguez, a former member of the Miami PD. Upon arriving at his hotel room, the girls see one of the bricks of cocaine laid out on the table, making Eddie one of the men who robbed the impound. Eddie's buzz is killed when Fauché, the ringleader of the robbery, and the rest of the men burst into the room. Eddie stammers out an apology to Fauché, who quiets him and introduces himself to Max, before shooting them both dead. Julie, who had left to use the washroom, witnesses the whole thing and runs when she is discovered, just barely being able to escape by jumping off the roof of the hotel into a pool. Mike and Marcus are called in to investigate the shooting, identifying Eddie and discovering Max's body. While Mike deals with Max's death, Marcus is working with Captain Howard when Julie calls in about the shooting. Saying she is going to run unless she talks to Mike, Howard has Marcus pretend to be Mike in order to get her to come in. Mike and Marcus are then forced to switch lives. Marcus tells his wife and kids he's going out of town on a case, and Mike's going to stay with them to look after things while he's gone, while Marcus is really moving into Mike's posh apartment to keep up the facade. The rushed nature of this undercover work naturally leads to some confusion between Julie and Marcus.
Hey, Mike, who's the guy in all the photographs?
Oh, sometimes I don't even look at my shelf and I forgot all the pictures was here. That's my partner. Yeah, that's my partner, Marcus Burnett.
Oh, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, I can see how it may throw you a little bit. Well, you know what? It's a cop thing. Yeah, these pictures up here for every time he saved my life. And it's the same thing with him. If you go to his place, ain't nothing but pictures of me, Mike Lowry. Because it's like a shrine. It's just a reminder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because, when I saw it, it was like the whole wall. I thought maybe there were, pictures of your lover.
Of who?
I thought that maybe you were gay.
After securing Julie in the apartment, the guys consult with Jojo, a former drug chemist / informant, about the drug scene in Miami, but Jojo has nothing to offer them. Mike and Marcus then take Julie to look at some mug shots to see if she remembers any of the thugs from the hotel. She recognizes one of Max's killers, whose record says he hangs out at a local club called Club Hell. Mike and Marcus take Julie back to the apartment and then head for the club. Once there, they search for the man Julie identified when Julie shows up looking for revenge for Max. All hell breaks loose when she attempts to assassinate Fauché, and his men retaliate. Marcus, Mike, and Julie escape the club in a stolen cargo van containing barrels of ether as Fauché's men chase them. Mike tosses one of the barrels out the back and shoots it, causing it to explode and take out their pursuers. Unfortunately, the whole ordeal is caught on tape by a news chopper. The next day, Mike and Marcus interrogate one of Fauché's men that was caught spying on Marcus's family. Through him, they learn Fauché is setting up to sell the stolen drugs. Knowing the villain will need an experienced chemist to properly cut the drugs, our heroes go back and play good cop and worse cop with Jojo, who gives them a name. The boys and Julius then stake out the chemist's home and follow him to Fauché's storehouse. However, Fauché sees them and follows them back to Mike's apartment, where Teresa, Marcus's wife, ambushes them after seeing her husband on the news. Busting in on Marcus and Julie, the whole story comes undone. Teresa storms out and Julie bolts, only to be captured by Fauché and his men. After a brief but intense chase/gunfight, Julie is taken by the drug dealers. To make matters worse, Fauché calls to warn them off before Internal Affairs shuts down the whole narcotics division. Captain Howard does what any sane cops in a 1990s action movie would do and ignores the order, telling Mike and Marcus to find and rescue Julie and take Fauché down, whatever it takes. Mike gets a hacker named Fletcher to unseal the deceased cop Eddie's file to find a connection to Fauché, discovering that the division's secretary Francine was his girlfriend. She had been informing on the cops because Fauché had threatened her life. She gives them a cell number from one of the robbery crew, and they trace it to an old airfield, where Fauché is completing a drug deal with a wealthy South American drug dealer. Mike and Marcus and 2 other narcotics cops bust up the deal, resulting in Julie's rescue, violent gun death for most of the bad guys, explosions, and one badass line from Marcus himself.
You forgot your boarding pass.
Fauché tries to escape in the dead drug dealer's Shelby Cobra, with Mike leaping onto the back at the last moment. Mike tries to take out Fauché, but the sinister cook shoots Mike in his bulletproof vest, causing him to fall off. Marcus and Julie, who escaped the firefight to get Mike's Porsche 911, arrive and scoop Mike up. Marcus tears off after Fauché, chasing him down a runway towards a dividing wall. With only a gap wide enough for one car, it becomes a desperate race to survive. At the last moment, Marcus nudges Fauché's car, sending it hurtling into the wall, allowing our arrows to pass through unharmed.
Now that's how you're supposed to drive. From now on, that's how you drive.
Fauché attempts to flee, but Mike shoots him in the leg, disabling him. Mike draws his weapon, preparing to shoot Fauché for what he did to Max, but Marcus calls him off. The 2 triumphant cops stand over the fallen Fauché when he pulls a hidden gun. Mike sees the glare from the gun on Marcus's face, quickly turning, pulling his gun, and ending Fauché. The rest of the cops finally arrive, and the film ends with Marcus and Mike reaffirming their friendship before Marcus handcuffs Mike to Julie and walking off into the sunset for a little quality time with his wife. Directed by Michael Make It Go Boom Bay and Powerhouse producers Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, Bad Boys opened in the spring of 1995 on April 7th. The film raked in $140 million during its theatrical run, just over 7 times its original budget. The cast consisted of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence as the titular bad boys Mike and Marcus, Téa Leoni as Julie, Tchechi Cario as the drug dealer Fauché, Joe Pantoliano as Captain Howard, Mark Helgenberger as Internal Affairs Captain Sinclair, and the Sopranos Michael Imperioli as Jojo the Informant. While commercially successful, Bad Boys received mixed reviews from critics. Siskel and Ebert both were not fans of the film. Ebert gave the film only 2 of 4 stars. Ebert said that despite the energy of the 2 leads and the visual style of Michael Bay's directing, the film seemed to be recycled out of bits from other movies like Lethal Weapon or Beverly Hills Cop. Gene Siskel also had no great love for the film, saying that the talents of Smith and Lawrence were wasted on a script that producers didn't seem to have spent enough time on. Reviews from modern critics are not so dissimilar from the great Siskel and Ebert. While a few held the movie up as entertaining and enjoyable, most critics found the characters uninspiring, the script weak, and just to be full of standard action movie fare. Now, we all know Michael Bay is the man who made, and some people could argue unmade, the Transformers films, but you may be interested to know that he got his start with this film. In fact, it was Bay's previous work on music videos that caught the eye of Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, who then chose him to direct the film. And during shooting, Bay became so unhappy with some of the dialogue between Mike and Marcus that he encouraged Will Smith and Martin Lawrence to improvise while the cameras were rolling. The character of Mike Lowry was originally offered to Arsenio Hall, but was then offered to Will Smith after Michael Bay caught an episode of Fresh Prince while preparing to shoot the film. Not only that, but the film was originally going to be called Bulletproof Hearts and was going to star Dana Carvey and John Lovitz. Wow. Don't think that would have worked, boys. Needless to say, I freaking love this movie, and that's because of its stars. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have great on-screen chemistry together, and that's what made the movie for me. Oh, sure, I was there for the explosions and the action scenes, but it was the odd couple relationship between the carefree Mike and the uptight Marcus that really stood out for me. The film also introduced me to Checky Cario, who has since become one of my favorite character actors. He can make any movie all that much more awesome just because he's in it. Except for Wing Commander. Nothing could save that movie. This has been Just the Facts for Bad Boys. I'm JT from Saskatoon, and I'll be back soon, but until then, I'm sending it back to the rest of the gang on M-Wire.
So thank you, JT, for those very interesting Just the Facts. And yeah, going back and watching this, I still can't believe this is a Michael Bay movie. I always knew it was, but it was one of those things where I'm so used to giant transforming sticks, because let's face it, it's all done in digital now. I'm so used to what he's doing now versus what he did over 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think, one of the big factors is that, this is a limited budget. Like, this is his first feature film. He was not an established director, and you'll see a major difference between Bad Boys 1 and Bad Boys 2. But I think that's a big factor, and like Michael Bay even said, like it was difficult because they had a limited budget. And at this point, he's really only done commercials. He's really only done music videos, and you kind of see a lot of that in this movie. And there are moments that kind of remind me that this is a Michael Bay movie. They're not as frequent. It's definitely smaller compared to his other films. The more success he's gotten, it's almost in a way ruined him because he's kind of relied too much on the special effects, like you mentioned. But in this, I think because of that limited budget and the fact that he could not just go crazy with the action, you had to allow his two leads, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, to take over. And that was a smart move because they're very charismatic. They work well with one another. And I think that when you have characters at the center of an action film, that's when it succeeds. Any buddy cop movie, the greatest buddy cop films, is because those characters are ones you can identify with, and those are ones that you enjoy watching on screen.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I completely agree. But even though this may have been a low-budget film for Michael Bay standards, because it was his first film, as you said, it still had a hell of a lot of action. It still had a hell of a lot of explosions.
Yes, I mean, to call Bad Boys a low-budget movie obviously is kind of crazy, but compared to Michael Bay, yeah, this is his small film.
Yeah. Alright, so the cast here for the first film, we kind of talked about them a little bit beforehand with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Martin Lawrence, let's start with him here. He has done... he actually started on television from 87 to 88 in What's Happening Now. He was in Kid and Play on TV. He was in Def Comedy Jam. Of course, most people on TV will remember him from his series Martin, 1992 to 97. And for films before this, House Party 2, people might remember.
He had a small role, very, very small, in Do the Right Thing, which is...
Yeah.
It's kind of a blink and you miss it type of role, but
Boomerang was the other one that he did right just kind of like just before Bad Boys. I would say that Bad Boys is what launched him. After that, it's a string of stuff we would have seen at some point. Thin Line Between Love and Hate, Nothing to Lose, Life, Blue Streak, and of course you said earlier. Big Mama's House and all that stuff. Black Knight. Of course, he comes back for Bad Boys 2. They've really, with him. Oh my God, he was in Wild Hogs. I didn't realize that. With him, they've kind of like run this whole Big Mama's thing into the ground. Those films to me are like any Tyler Perry movie that's with Medea. It just, there's so many. I mean, I know there's only 3 Big Mama's movies, but it's like Big Mama, Big Mama, Big Mama. It's like not really right in a row, but like that's mainly the ones that are popping out to me on his filmography.
Yeah, they're almost, they kind of started not long after Eddie Murphy hit it big with the Nutty Professor and him dressing up as a woman and all that, and then kind of seems like after that it started this barrage of all these films with guys dressing up as big fat ladies, and then you had the biggest Mama House, and then we have 3 big Mama House movies. It's crazy that happened, but it has.
Yeah.
I think too he's been well documented for having some more personal issues. He's actually had some pretty good stand-up specials within that time. Yeah. I think he's still done stand-up while Will Smith never did, but I think that besides just having a movie career, he did continue working on that end of his career. And it looks like maybe he could have a small comeback, because it's possible that there'll be another Bad Boys movie. It's in development. And
yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, what I find funny is that from 2011 to 2015, he, according to Wikipedia, and again, it's Wikipedia, I know people, whatever, but according to their information, Big Mama's House 3 was his last film between 2011 and potentially Bad Boys 3 in 2015. You seriously telling me he did nothing last year and he's not going to do anything this year or next year? I highly doubt that. They'll have a Big Mama's House 4 or 5 or whatever.
Maybe they'll have a crossover movie with Tyler Perry's Medea.
Oh my god, that would be so hilarious.
They can throw in, the mom from Nutty Professor. It'll be like the Avengers of the old
Hercules! Oh my god, yes.
Bad TV actually did a really great skit like that, where it was all like it was that idea. It was a long time ago, but that's what kind of popped in my head.
Going on to Will Smith, as far as television, holy crap. Saturday morning videos, ABC After School Special, of course, Fresh Prince from 90 to 96. He was in an episode of Blossom as himself. He was in an episode of Martin as himself. Happily Ever After, All of Us, which I believe is a series. Yeah, he created that series with his wife. He was on he's had a cameo appearance on American Chopper. Oh my god. As far as films, his first actual film was Where the Day Takes You. Made in America, 6 Degrees of Separation, and then Bad Boys is really what launched him. Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black. Oh my god, 3 years and 3 action movies. Holy crap.
Yep.
Well, actually 4 or 5, because then you got Enemy of the State and Wild Wild West, and then he goes to play golf as the Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah, he had a run there where like every movie he was in was a $100 million film. He was one of the biggest. He still is, but there was a Will Smith summer movie. You knew it was going to be one of the biggest movies of the year, and even something like Men in Black, which was not at the time. It looked like this small movie. It wasn't really all that hyped up, but it became huge, and then we got 2 other sequels. So yeah, he's one of the few movie stars today that can still draw an audience.
Yeah. Well, that's because he diversifies himself. Okay, you look at those ones I just mentioned. Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black, Enemy of the State, and Wild Wild West. Even Legend of Bagger Vance. Those are all very different films. Granted, Wild Wild West, Enemy of the State, and Bad Boys and Independence Day are kind of like the same type of role. But in 2001, he played Muhammad Ali in Ali. That was a complete departure than any of the previous films he'd done. Of course, in 2002, he comes back with Men in Black 2 and 2003, Bad Boys 2. He had a cameo appearance in Jersey Girl. I don't know what... Anyway. And also in 2004, he was in one of my favorite... I really love this movie, I, Robot. I love that movie. That was so awesome. Then he was in Shark Tale. Don't like that movie. Hitch, The Pursuit of Happiness, was one that really got him. I mean, he got nominated for a bunch of stuff for that movie. That movie got nominated for a bunch of stuff, but I'm sure he also got nominated for a bunch of stuff in that film.
Yeah, that's where he got his second Oscar nomination. The first for being for Ali, the second for Pursuit of Happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, I Am Legend, Hancock, 7 Pounds, Men in Black 3. And later this year, he's got After Earth and Winter's Tale. So, he's been, slowly, we've looked at a lot of these filmographies from episode 94 to, back when we started with Pretty Woman in episode 90, and, it's been interesting, but I mean, his looks like a blockbuster resume because it is.
Yeah, and he's also been getting into producing. I mean, he has his son and daughter's career, their musical career, After Earth. He's a big producer on that. He was a producer on the remake of The Karate Kid. So it seems like he's also diversifying himself beyond just being an actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, because he started out as a rapper with DJ Jazzy and all that, and of course he went to Fresh Prince and then this acting career, and of course, as I've stated before, Hollywood to me is, you start out as either a comedian or an actor or whatever, television star or whatever. You then go to the next level, which for him was obviously big budget blockbusters, and now he's going, behind the camera, producing, directing, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Same thing with, like Ben Affleck and all that. Same thing is where that's the evolution of Hollywood. You start out on screen, and by the time you're 40, 50, 60, you're behind the camera doing all the other stuff. All right, so next up we have Agent Mulder's wife. Taleone. And apparently, as of 2 years ago, on June 29th, Duchovny and she had split again. But for her, the only thing I had ever... Okay, sure... Well, no, I don't think I even saw that either. I didn't even know she was in A League of Their Own. Didn't even...
It's only a bit part.
It's one bit part. She was in Wyatt Earp, Bad Boys, Deep Impact. The Family Man is really where I remember her from. I love that movie. She was in Jurassic Park 3, People I Know, Hollywood Ending, House of D, Spanglish, Fun with Dick and Jane. Recently, The Smell of Success, and she was in Tower Heist 2 years ago. She's also on television as well. She was in Frasier as Sheila for an episode. She was on obviously she was on the X-Files at some point in 2000. But hers, she started in 91 with Switch, and it seems like maybe once or twice every 2 or 3 years she does stuff.
Yeah, she seems to be kind of one of those actresses they just plug in there. Like, she's never really been... I think she's fine, but I don't think she's not...
Yeah.
She's not like a big name. She's just often a bit part in a lot of movies, like she is in Bad Boys 2. She's not really someone you go to because you want them to carry a film. And like, if you're gonna like try to define her as an actress, it's kind of hard. She's not really a comedian. She's not really a very dramatic actress. She's just kind of in between. She's been good in certain things. I thought she was decent enough in Spanglish, but overall, it doesn't like she has done much recently. And I think she's an okay actress, which is why she tends to be just in okay films for the most part.
The guy that plays Fouché, until I saw Bad Boys, I don't remember this guy from anything. Apparently he's been doing stuff since the 80s, though. But yeah, I mean, him, I don't... Even looking at his most recent stuff, I have not seen a lot of these movies. Kiss the Dragon, The Patriot... Okay, The Patriot, I remember that one. But, like, I don't know. Any thoughts on him? Oh, wait, he was in GoldenEye? Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't recognize him. He was Mishkin in GoldenEye.
Yeah, I honestly, he's not someone that's on my radar at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, you look him up and wow. Alright, so let's move on over to Joe Pantoliano. I love him in this movie, in both these movies. the character of Captain Howard is so awesome, but he has been in a number of stuff that I've liked. And his career started back in '74 with Road Movie. Holy crap. He was in Risky Business. He was in Eddie and the Cruisers. He was in The Goonies.
A lot of people will probably remember him from Memento and The Matrix, and it's probably his two biggest roles. When people see him, like, I know that guy from someplace. It's most likely Memento or The Matrix.
Or most people will remember him from a couple of seasons of The Sopranos, because he was in that as well.
True. Yeah, he's a working man actor, because he is in tons of stuff. He does voice acting. He's in movies. He's in TV. He's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and he appeared in one of my favorite movies of 2003, Daredevil, as Ben the Reporter. So it's kind of interesting to see him as Captain Howard in these films, and then watching him in that film. It's very interesting, because he's an actor that has that really, not necessarily finesse, but he's one of those ones that he just does something that it's just so awesome that you just can't help but like him.
He's good at playing the likable ass, kind of, in a way. He knows how he can become very annoying, but he knows what levels to push it to the point where he doesn't get completely annoying. He comes very close in some of these movies, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I do enjoy him quite a bit. He's a perfect character actor, and he comes in, he does what he needs to do, and he can do a lot of different things. So
his television credits, amazing. MASH, Hardcastle and McCormick, Hill Street Blues, Trapper John M.D., Simon and Simon, L.A. Law, NYPD Blue. Like I said before, The Sopranos. He was Dante, a voice on The Simpsons. He's just a really, really great actor. As far as the rest of the cast in the first film, the only other 3 or 4 that I recognize, Teresa Randall, I love her. She's a great actress. Of course, John Sally, Mr. Basketball himself. You got a CSI crossover here with Marg Helgenberger. And again, with The Sopranos, Michael Imperioli plays JoJo. Overall, this movie has a knockout cast.
Yeah, I mean, I think its main 3 are definitely Martin Lawrence, Will Smith, and Joy Esposito. The rest, I mean, Tia Leone. I wouldn't put this as a all-star cast. I think there's a lot of decent character actors, but I think most of the weight of this cast go to the big leads.
Oh yeah, I agree. As far as the film itself, like JT said, it's basically they got to figure out how their own drug bust got stolen from them, and this movie is just so. It's so action-packed, even for the small budget that it has, but it's almost like you don't even really see the story until it kind of unfolds at the end. I did feel kind of uncomfortable with the whole swapping, with Mike and Marcus having to swap lives at first.
Yeah.
Especially when they're around Julie, and I thought that was weird.
I think JT mentions in Just the Facts, like the script for this actually started out as a project for Dana Carvey and John Lovitz, and it morphed over time into this movie. And I have a feeling like that switch of like them trying to play each other was a big part of that original script, because it does feel like a more comedic type of situation, almost like a basic sitcom in a way. And I do think that, to me, is probably the biggest downfall of the film, because it's not really necessary. It doesn't really do much. It doesn't lead to a lot of great comedy, and it really drags the second act. And like I'm just kind of just waiting for it to kind of resolve itself. And when it finally does, the film starts to pick up. But I think if you're going to edit this down, because this movie is almost 2 hours, you can almost take off the middle 30 minutes or so, and he would have a much tighter film. But yeah, I agree. That was probably my biggest downfall of the film.
Yeah, but yeah, and plus they basically give it away halfway forward because the two kids are watching TV and see the news broadcast, and boom, Teresa finds out, and she's on a rampage, and then Julie just kind of finds out by process of elimination almost. When you boil it down to it, like I normally say, oh, this is just a drug plot, or oh, this is just a guy who's going to do a drug deal. Yes, it is that, but it's also a movie about Mike and Marcus's friendship and how different their two styles are, but yet they work so well together because they can anticipate each other's thoughts or movements or like what they're thinking. So I liked it. I thought it was great. It's a movie that I can watch often. When we get to the sequel, that's a movie that I've seen often enough that I pretty much have it memorized front to back. But what would you rank this one, 1 to 4?
If I was going to rank it, I would probably 2 is what watch on TV, and 3 is on your Netflix queue.
Yeah,
I'd probably put it in like around a 2.5 or a 3, mostly 2.5, just because the biggest draw to me are the two main cast. I don't think it really brings a lot to the table that's new or different regarding the action for the most part, and like I mentioned, that big middle chunk it really drags it down. There's some good comedic moments. The action it's well enough. It's Michael Bay really kind of cutting his teeth for the first time, and you see a lot of what he's able to do, kind of show itself for the. But I think just that final, I was really become that at the end, the final climax. I was kind of lost interest almost because I was just kind of ready for it to get there. But it's fun enough, and I think, like you mentioned, it is a movie you can rewatch a lot because there are all these little side jokes that you can miss on a first-time watch. And I do love the fact that you can tell there's a lot of ad-libbing going on between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, I think, because there are some rather horrible jokes with the script, and even Michael Bay said he was not a big fan of the script, but when they're on and he's letting them do what they do best, that's when the movie really shines.
I think JT even said in Just the Facts that Michael Bay told them to improv when they felt it was necessary.
Yeah,
and they just shot them, improving. And actors like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in these specific roles of Mike and Marcus, the improv will just come, and we will see that in the second film. For me, I give it a solid 3. I think both just got added to Netflix about 3 or 4 months ago, because before that, the only place I had them was I had bought them on iTunes a couple of years ago, so I do own them. But like for everybody else, a solid 3 is a good rating, I think, for this one. So I think we are going to get into Bad Boys 2, and here is JT with the plot synopsis.
Bad Boys 2 opens 8 years after the end of the first film, and we find detectives Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry still at work trying to halt the flow of illegal drugs into the greater Miami area. Currently assigned to the tactical narcotics team of the Miami PD, the Bad Boys follow a suspect drug mule to a KKK rally and infiltrate it in hopes of finding the source of the recent surge of ecstasy that has hit Miami. However, it's not long before Mike and Marcus reveal themselves to the racists while singing their theme song. A gun battle soon erupts in the docks, and Mike and Marcus do battle with the Klan while the rest of the team charges in. In the midst of all the flying lead, Mike saves his partner from a shotgun-wielding Klansman John Woo style, but not without some consequences.
Who shot you in the ass? Who? That who would be you. Me? I shot you? Yeah. I mean, I was shooting. I did a lot of shooting. I mean, but I ain't saying I shot you in the ass. I mean, I ain't saying I didn't shoot you. But damn! Somebody shot you in the ass.
Tell me about it.
I think it's cool, man. It hit the meat. It ain't nowhere near the hole.
Unfortunately, the info provided by Mike's informant was incorrect, as the TNT team recovers only 2 bags of ecstasy tabs, not the largest drug shipment ever. Mike assures the TNT captain that he'll talk to his informant and get the real info before accompanying Marcus to the hospital via chopper. And it turns out that the mule they were following works for a local drug lord named Johnny Tapia, who gets the bad news about the bust and orders his men to mix up the drug shipment schedules in order to keep the cops guessing. The next day, Mike crashes Marcus's family barbecue, and we meet Marcus's sister, Sid. And once they're alone, Mike and Sid kiss, and we find out that they've been dating behind Marcus's back, mainly because Mike thinks Marcus wouldn't be able to handle it. It also turns out that Marcus intends to transfer to another division away from Mike, but is waiting to tell him at the right time. After Sid tries to get Mike to confess during the meal, the 2 detectives are called in to get chewed out by Captain Howard about the unsuccessful bust the night before. Mike assures the captain that his informant Icepick will deliver the goods the next time he calls. Indeed, Icepick soon calls shortly after, directing the bad boys to a Haitian gang, led by a man known as Blondie Dread. The Haitians have gotten word of a handoff of Tapia's drug money that they intend to steal. In the meantime, it appears the DEA are trailing Tapia's money as well, and that they are staking out an illegal Russian nightclub and watch as the owner Alexei meets with his new money launderer, Sid. It turns out that Sid is undercover DEA, and after selling herself as the Russians' new laundry service, Sid heads for a handoff with one of Tapia's men, watched over by her DEA team. However, while waiting for the contact, Blondie Dread's crew ambushes her and kills her partner. Sid manages to kill her assailants and escape in the SUV, followed by the Haitians. Mike and Marcus, having tailed the Haitians to the meet, take off after them as well in Mike's Ferrari when they see the Haitians are chasing Sid. Sid leads the Haitians, Mike and Marcus, and the rest of the Miami PD on a wild car chase through the city and onto the MacArthur Causeway, causing massive amounts of property and vehicular damage. And after nearly totaling every other car on the road, the Haitians lose sight of Sid and escape to steal another day. Mike and Marcus catch up to Sid, who confesses the truth to them. Mark is very upset by Sid's actions and walks away, while Mike comforts her, as she has never killed anyone in the line of duty and she's having a hard time with it. Mike and Marcus head back to the precinct, where they are chewed out again by Captain Howard for causing so much damage. They manage to get him to allow them to stay on the case, and they go to question Icepick. After nearly demolishing his small shop, Icepick tells them how to track down the Haitian gang at their hideout. When Mike and Marcus enter the abandoned house, a gun battle erupts that leaves Blondie Dread the sole surviving member of the gang. The boys learn that Blondie learned of the drop-off because one of the former gang members followed and filmed Tapia's men with his camcorder. Mike and Marcus go to a local electronics store where they watch the video, seeing that the drug runners operate out of a funeral home owned by Johnny Tapia, who apparently has been pursued by the Miami PD before but with no convictions. Mike has the hacker Fletcher from the first film set up a phone tap where they hear the call for an exterminator, so Mike and Marcus disguise themselves as exterminators in order to gain entry to the drug lord's home and plant some bugs. At the same time, Johnny is entertaining club owner Alexei and his lieutenant, which quickly turns into a bloody coup as the lieutenant is killed in the kitchen, and Johnny forces Alexei to turn over his nightclubs to him or he'll be killed as well. Mike finds the grisly scene in the kitchen while snooping, and is soon discovered by one of Johnny's men. Mike knocks him out, and the boys just barely escape with their lives and head back to the precinct. Mike has a severed finger he found analyzed, which traces back to the dead lieutenant, which leads to Alexei, which in turn leads Mike and Marcus to realizing Johnny is making a push to take over the X trade in the city. Mike also has Fletcher reconstruct a shredded photo he found in the mansion. The picture is of a boat called the Dixie 7, which leads them to Floyd, one of the KKK guys from the beginning of the film. Mike and Marcus decide to follow the drugs from the boat and see if they lead to the funeral home. After springing Floyd, the boys meet with Sid and bring her up to speed on everything. Mike also invites Sid along on the stakeout after she has met with Johnny and has been hired as his new money launderer. While waiting for the latest drug drop, Sid reveals to a petulant Marcus that she and Mike are dating, which in turn leads to Marcus and Mike nearly coming to blows. However, the Dixie 7 soon picks up the fresh drugs, and the boys and Sid follow the boat to the next drop, where they're loaded onto one of Johnny's mortuary vans. Sid stays behind, and Mike and Marcus follow the mortuary van, but are discovered, and a gun battle / car chase ensues. After chasing the crooks into a bank and onto a train, the boys manage to kill them all, but are no closer to busting Johnny Tapia. Marcus also reveals to Mike during this that he intends to transfer after they close this one final case. The next day, Mike comes to visit Marcus after he obtains a sneak and peek warrant for the funeral home. That night, the boys break into the funeral home through the cremation chimney and plant spy cams before searching the corpses in one of the preparatory rooms. They discover cash in the coffins and drugs stuffed inside the cadavers, during which Marcus swallows some X when he has a drink of water. Hearing the mortuary attendants coming, Mike hides in a closet and Marcus hides under the sheet on a gurney with a corpse, which of course is the first body the attendants take for embalming. Mike has their undercover partners outside crash their ambulance into the mortuary, allowing them to escape. Heading to Captain Howard's home to present their evidence, Mike realizes Marcus is high on X. Marcus's behavior becomes increasingly erratic as Mike confers with Howard, who finally approves a raid to take down the drug lord. And after getting medical help from Marcus, the bad boys and Howards put together and execute the raid. However, Sid is meeting with Johnny during this, who discovers her wire and takes her hostage, just as a drunken, gun-wielding Alexi busts into the mansion. The Miami PD also busts into the mansion and take down Alexi, but miss Johnny and his compatriots who escape to Cuba with Sid in tow. After busting the drugs in transit, Mike and Marcus find out what has happened to Sid, and are told by the State Department that a diplomatic solution is being pursued. They, however, decide to ignore this and make a plan to rescue Sid themselves, aided by the rest of the TNT team and the DEA. After infiltrating Cuba, the crew hooks up with the anti-Castro underground. Mike and Marcus sneak into the mansion inside one of Tapia's cash coffins, while the rest of the team enter the mansion through tunnels from the safe house across the street. The rest of the team blows up the security station, signaling the boys, who pop out of the coffins and shoot their way into the house, while the others hold off the guards. They rescue Sid, but are cut off from their escape route and instead escape by driving through the house into the drug lord's own Humvee, with Johnny in hot pursuit. Tapia chases the boys and Sid through the town, up into the hills, and down through a shanty town towards the American military base at Guantanamo Bay. After crashing to a halt, Johnny holds Mike at gunpoint and orders Sid and Marcus to throw down their weapons. Sid throws her so it hits one of the landmines laying at the feet of Johnny's lone surviving henchman, killing him. This allows Marcus to do the cool cop roll and shoot Johnny dead in the head, leading to Mike to paraphrase what he said to Marcus in the last film.
Now that's how you're supposed to shoot. From now on, that's how you shoot. Woo! Oh, I want my next partner to shoot just like that. It take a dysfunctional motherfucker to bust somebody in the head like that. That's some dysfunctional shit. My next partner gonna invite me to his barbecues and shit, though.
After returning to Miami, Marcus and Mike decide to remain partners, and Marcus gives his blessing to Mike dating Sid before they start bickering again, causing the family dog to pull the pool apart. The film ends with the boys singing their song after getting washed out into the river. After an 8-year hiatus, detectives Lowry and Burnett again report for duty in Bad Boys 2, released into theaters on July 18, 2003. Again directed by Michael Bay, Smith and Lawrence headlined the cast, which also included Gabrielle Union as Sid, Jordi Mola as drug lord Johnny Tapia, Joe Pantoliano, who returned from the first film as Captain Howard, Peter Stormare as Russian club owner Alexei, and outspoken musician Henry Rollins in a small cameo as the leader of the TNT drug team. Even director Michael Bay scored himself a cameo as Marcus's would-be carjack victim. The sequel received mostly negative reviews from film critics, who mainly complained about the bloated plot, coarse language, and the somewhat brutal action. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film only 1 star, saying the needless cruelty of some of the scenes and excessive use of the N-word took him out of the film. He even went so far as to say that this was the worst film of 2003, even worse than the notoriously bad Geely. Other critics weren't any more kind than Ebert. Joe Lozito of BigPictureBigSound.com said in his review that the film was an overblown, underwhelming sequel to the 1995 original. Film4.com critic Leigh Singer pretty much summed up other critics' reviews in her own, saying Bad Boys 2 was everything that's wrong with modern Hollywood. Bad Boys 2 isn't simply bad, it's one of the worst films of the year. Of all the stunts in the film, the biggest had to be the action scene where the bad boys assault Johnny Tapia's mansion in the final act of the film. The mansion itself had stood for years, partly incomplete in downtown Miami, before its owner advertised in Variety magazine for it to be used in a movie and blown the hell up at the end. Which it did, real good too. And while Bad Boys 2 was filming on one side of Cape Florida State Park, another over-the-top, almost incoherent sequel was also being filmed on the other side. That film being 2003's Too Fast, Too Furious. The film also caused no end of frustration for Miami residents when it shut down the MacArthur Causeway for 2 weeks to film the epic car chase scene. Not only that, but Michael Bay's own Ferrari 550 Maranello was used for some of the stunt work in the car chase down the causeway as well. And as I said earlier, Michael Bay had a cameo in the film, But that wasn't the only member of the Bay household that appeared in the movie. Bay's pet dog Mason stood in as the Burnett family dog, whose size actually creeped out Martin Lawrence during filming. In addition to being the last R-rated film Bay would direct and Bruckheimer would produce, it was also the last time the two had worked together on a film since 2003. As far as sequels go, Bad Boys 2 is okay. Don't get me wrong, people, I like this movie. I would even say I love it, but it irks me a lot too. I mean, I think it stems from the script. You got the plot on top of the subplot, on top of a side plot. It just gets a little too confusing sometimes. Overall, though, it's a serviceable action movie with plenty of explosions and TNA. I think it tries a little too hard to top the first one, but that's just my opinion. I'm JT from Saskatoon, and this was just the facts for Bad Boys 2. Now, we're sending it back to M-Wire. Later.
Bring the noise.
Thank you once again, JT, for all that awesome info and plot synopsis on Bad Boys 2. So this one came out in 2003, and I find it really funny that they are going to be doing, and we'll talk about this at the end here a little bit, but I find it very interesting that if they do Bad Boys 3 in 2015, that's 20 years after the first film.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And
yeah.
It's been that long since the first one came out. Man, it does make you feel really, really old. That someone born in 1994 can legally will be able to legally drink by the time that probably comes out.
Oh yeah. So this one also stars, Will and Martin. And they add in this time around Gabrielle Union as Marcus's sister, Sydney, or Sid. The first time I had seen her in anything is a film that we'll be talking about at the end of the 90s flashback, 10 Things I Hate About You. She was in that. She's been in a bunch. She was in Bring It On, opposite Kristen Dunst. She's had a bunch of different roles as well. She was in, let's see what else. She's just had she's been all over the place. I like her as an actress. I like her in this role of Sid. I think that's a really cool role, and it was something new and interesting that they introduced into the franchise of these characters. Have you seen her in anything else other than this?
No, she had a small role in The West Wing. She was in Love and Basketball, which is a decent little film. She's been in a lot of TV. Some of the shows I don't watch. She was in Think Like a Man, which actually I thought was a lot better than I expected. In Good Deeds, but yeah, this is probably one of her bigger films, even to this day. I mean, she was in Meet Dave, which was pretty awful, but not because of her. It's one of Eddie Murphy's many failed films, and she was even in Saved by the Bell, the new class. Not as a main character, but looks like she was in it a few times as different characters, actually.
Yeah. She was in, oh man, what was that movie? Oh, it was a Steven Seagal. No, it wasn't. Crap. It was a DMX movie. What the hell's the name of that damn movie? Cradle to the Grave. She was in that. I liked her in that. But she's just one of those actresses that when you see her, when you see her pop up, you're like, oh, hey, yay. Awesome. She'll make this film good. And like I said, adding in the character dynamic of having something come between Mike and Marcus's friendship, especially if Mike's going to date his sister, that was an interesting, kind of relationship twist with Mike and Marcus. I thought that was cool. The rest of the cast, outside of Peter Stormare, who plays Alexei, he was the astronaut in Armageddon. He was the Russian astronaut. Remember?
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. Okay.
The very ordinary Russian astronaut. Yeah.
Yes. I thought that was interesting that Michael Bay brought him back. Outside of the rest of them, outside of the ones we kind of already talked about, Henry Rollins as the TNT leader is kind of like a guest role. Oh my God. So that's where Michael Bay found her. As an uncredited appearance as a dancer in a club. So she was stripping all those years ago before she humped giant metal robots. Megan Fox is in this movie. I don't believe that. Oh, God.
Really? I didn't think she'd even be old enough at the time. But that probably would not stop Michael Bay. So.
Again, you get John Sally coming back as well as Hacker Fletcher. But I mean, they even with Jordi Mala, or I don't even know how to say Johnny Tapia's actor's name. Even with him, I mean, they added a cool villain and stuff, but it's still that same old. I don't know. There's nothing really there for this movie. This movie is essentially the same damn thing as the first movie. Even though I like both these films. It's drugs and money this time. Last time it was drugs and money.
Yeah.
That's not all cops do. Yes, I get that Mike and Marcus are on the, tactical narcotics team, and I get that they're doing the narcotics thing and everything else, but I'm hoping with the third one they do something else. They do something different. By 2015, the technology is going to be explosive, so I don't know.
I think, too, when you look at these two films, and this film came after Michael Bay had a lot of success. He had Armageddon, he had
Pearl Harbor,
The Rock. Well, Pearl Harbor wasn't a huge success, but Armageddon was a huge blockbuster. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, Michael Bay is a person that success doesn't do well for him, because what happens is he needs someone to say no to him. And I think this movie just reeks of the fact that no one was willing to tell him maybe you should dial it back a little bit. It's a movie like I do enjoy, but it is crazy insane at times. Like, you literally have dead bodies flying all over the place, getting run over by cars, and it's just to the excess. It is everything. It's that classic taking a sequel and just completely going over the top with everything to try to top the original. And it's a perfect.
See, I think this did top the original, though.
I would say in some ways it does, because the action is a lot better, and Michael Bay is a more seasoned director, and you see his style in this film. Say what you want about Michael Bay, but he is an auteur in his own right. When you're watching a Michael Bay movie, he continually keeps the camera moving. It never stops. There's like that shootout with the Haitians, and it's just the camera it's like a merry-go-round camera back.
It is, yeah.
Just keeps going around and around and around to the point you can get dizzy. But he knows how to shoot action. I completely give him credit. And the car chase in this, the one where they're on the highway and there's like all the cars flying around, and he actually put cameras on stunt cars, and told the stuntmen, hit that car that's flying down the road to get these awesome images. And he does do that. But I think what happens is there's just too much at times. I mentioned in the first film there, you have that mid plot of them trying to play each other, like, that switcheroo type of thing. And this one, it just suffers from, like, that last 30 minutes is just too. You've already had all this great action. I just didn't need it. Like when they go to Cuba and there's that huge car chase with the Hummers and everything like that. I'm like, we've already had a lot of this. It's almost to excess. It's like going to all-you-can-eat buffet and then leaving and going to another all-you-can-eat buffet like 20 minutes later. It's just, you got to learn proportion control. And I think that's the biggest issue here.
What is this one? 2 hours? 2.5 hours? Something like that?
It's 2.5 hours. Almost, yeah.
Okay, 2.5 hours. Those first, there's 3 big scenes in this movie. There's the first car chase with the cars, like you said. There's the second car chase with the dead bodies and the boat and all that. And then there's the end scene with the Hummer going down the hill. I think they're spread out enough throughout the movie. Like, one's at the beginning, one's in the middle, one's at the end. For me, I think they're spread out enough that I don't really notice that it's so much. I like the fact that they're actually going to invade someone's home to arrest them. And as JT said in Just the Facts, apparently the owner of that house said, hey, I'm going to give it to a big movie because I don't want the house anymore, so they can just blow it up. As long as it has a giant explosion, I don't care. And I thought that was really interesting for the time in 2003 of actually having a Hummer drive through a house. I thought that was kind of cool. And I like the action. I think it's great. But you're right. It just... Outside of the relationship between Mike and Marcus, this movie suffers from just too much at once. And just, like, that whole scene, that whole first scene with the drop that the Haitians are going to rob, the one we're at the parking garage. I was confused as to all hell as to who was doing what. Okay, yes, I know Mike and Marcus are doing their thing. But you've got the Haitians, you've got Johnny Tapia's people, you've got the DEA, you've got the Miami there was way too many things going on in that scene to keep up with what was actually going on.
Yeah, and I think too, it is kind of crazy. You have like 4 different parties all at once, and trying to figure out who's who, and it's just it's basically what they needed to do was get these to try to link Will Smith and Martin Lawrence with Gabrielle Union, and how do their two cases kind of combine into one. So I think that's that moment they had to have. That was kind of messily done, but it did lead to that really great car chase. But one thing that's true. Did you feel like in this one, like I felt in the first film, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith seemed like they were on an even playing field, but in this, I felt like it was really Will Smith's movie, and Martin Lawrence was not nearly as much of a factor in it.
This is what I meant earlier about the physical comedy versus just the natural suaveness. Martin Lawrence has this whole physical outbreak when they're in Blondie Dread's house. After the shootout, he just has this whole thing where he's yelling, shouting, trying to apologize, and the whole time he's using his entire body to express himself. Well, that's all well and good. I could have done without that. I would say this is more Will's movie because of the fact of the storyline with him and Gabrielle Union, but you didn't have that standard. Well, you did have one standard shot, like we had in the first film. You had the standard shot of after Sid gets kidnapped. Yeah. Michael Bay did that shot that I mentioned earlier, where it pans up and pans around, and they come up into the scene, and so you have that. But as far as the story goes, it was more so about their friendship kind of going awry because of Mike's choices. And I don't seem to think that Marcus was in the background. And again, I don't think he was that much I don't think Martin Lawrence was that much in the background because they had him swallow X, or they had him act like he swallowed ecstasy. So that, there's that. He's got his moments, but I would tend to agree that it is mostly Will Smith's movie.
Yeah, like I guess more so that I felt Will Smith is more of a realistic person, and Martin Lawrence just becomes this crazy character full of antics. And he has that, the thing with he's having these mental difficulties because of the nerve damage of getting shot in the butt and all this other. Yeah, he just seems like Martin Lawrence cannot catch a break in this film at all. It seems like his pull breaks. Yeah. What did you think of the scene with them at it's not Best Buy, but the Best Buy scene?
Oh God, I hate that scene. I didn't realize that scene was as long as it was when I watched it back. And because I've seen, the reason why I say that is because I've seen this movie so many times on TV. They cut the scene after, they cut out the whole thing of them sitting on the couch being filmed. They cut on the edited TV version. They cut it right after they see the Spanish Palms mortuary. They cut the whole scene after that. They don't even show it. So I didn't even realize that there was a black lady there. Didn't even realize that the father. I was like, what the hell is this? Because I'm so used to seeing the edited for TV version that I didn't even really remember that the rest of that scene with the kid's father coming in and all the. I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah, what catches me in that scene is the fact that they're taking this this evidence and they're taking it to like a Best Buy store and just playing it in front of everyone. I'm like, they do have stuff at the police precinct that you could do that. Like, why are you bringing it to like an electronics store? But they get that done. But yeah, it does go on a little bit too long. Like I mentioned, it's Michael Bay just going a little too further and going with the obvious jokes. He is a guy who I think Michael Bay is his comedy, as we've seen in the Transformer movies, tends to rely a lot on racism and like homosexuality jokes. It's like that's his big thing. And that's like his go-to, and that's I could tell that was like a Michael Bay moment. Like this is going to be hilarious, and I think it kind of falls flat, like you mentioned, because it just goes on for too long.
Like I said, that's and this is one of those reasons why, even though I love this movie, I love the action of this movie. Once we get down to the ratings, I would not rate it that you should watch it on Netflix because, like I said, that whole scene because it's when I first saw the film back in 2003, 2004, it's been so long since then that I didn't even remember it. And like I said, I've been so desensitized by the TV version of it that I didn't remember that extended part of the scene. And it's just one of those things where it's just so not needed. Even in the story of the two of them and their friendship and the stuff with Sid, that whole thing is, oh God, it so should have just been cut out of the movie.
Yeah. And I've been saying a lot of negative things, so I guess I should, because I don't hate this movie. I do enjoy it. And I think the biggest factor, besides just Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, is the action is a lot better than the first one, mainly because I think it's Michael Bay he has had more experience, and you see that. And even though it might go on too long, just the incredible stunt work that's done in this movie, it's impressive. And there is a mixture of different action. There's some good shootouts. The last final Cuban taking of that building was really nicely done. I liked how they used like the mini remote control car. I thought that was pretty cool. And that when they're going through that shanty town and kind of destroying everything, it maybe reminded me of Police Story, the Jackie Chan film, because they have a similar type of car chase, which I kind of enjoyed. So yeah, and I think it is a lot more fun. I think it kind of it has a stronger cast. I think Gabrielle Union is better in this role than Tia Leone. I think she's a better actress. She has more charisma, and she works better with Will Smith.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was it's so well done as far as the action and like the bit lines and the quotes and all that stuff. But the story itself, like I said, there could have been stuff cut out of it. There could have been stuff that wasn't necessarily needed. Because if you just watch it as the TV version, having that additional part of the electronics store scene wouldn't have it really, like I said, isn't needed, because you still get the whole thing of what their friendship is to them without it. And the other thing that, as much as I do enjoy this movie, the other thing that really bugs me, and I'm hoping they somehow move on from this with the characters of Marcus and Captain Howard in the third film, if Joey Pants does come back for the third film, is that they get rid of the whole woosah thing. Oh my God, I was so fed up with that.
Yeah, that was a running joke that needed to not be a running joke. It just went on.
Yeah.
It was just because it was, you had Martin Lawrence saying it. I guess it was just this theme going on at the time. With Joey Esposito, he was saying it too. It did kind of. It wasn't as funny as they thought it was, and it was just kind of overplayed, and it felt like every time anything happened, Martin Lawrence just became this shell of a man and kept saying woosah, woosah. I'm like, okay, I get it, but
I like it when he's like in Ice Pick's shop and they're gonna destroy the. I like it like when he's doing it like that, but when he's just doing it out of pure unmanly emotion, it just no. No, not at all. All right, so what would we rate this one? 1 to 4. 1 is don't watch it even if it's free. 2 is worth a watch if it's free on TV. Worth adding to the Netflix queue is 3. Or 4 is this one is a must add to your DVD collection.
Well, I gave the last one a 2.5, and I think though I have issues with it, I do think it's like 20, 30 minutes too long. I what is there works really well in the action. It has one of the best car chases I've seen maybe in the last 20 or 30 years, and I think that makes it worth watching. So, and I do enjoy it more than the first one. So I would give it a 3, just a little bit better than the first one. I think it's a solid film, even with that
additional
scene making it longer. I would give it a solid 3.
I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 2, even though I enjoyed this one way more than the first one. I like the first one for what it is, and I like the first one for all the quotes and everything else. But for this one, I have to give it a 2 simply because I prefer the TV edited version without that scene in there, without that additional scene. I mean, if I was really going to say, oh my God, I love this, there's no problems with it, I would give it a 3 or a 4. But I have to give it a 2 because watching that extended scene just took me so far out of the movie. At that point in the movie, I was like, yeah, I need to go do something else now.
Yeah.
All right, so sequel. There's sequel news over the last couple of years. Michael Bay has stated that he may direct Bad Boys 3 after Transformers Dark of the Moon, which opened in cinemas in June 2011. Bay has pointed out that the greatest obstacle to the potential sequel would be the cost, as he and Will Smith demand some of the highest salaries in the film industry. So far, it has been confirmed that Columbia Pictures has hired Peter Craig to write the script for Bad Boys 3. In an appearance on the Monique show on BET, Martin Lawrence confirmed that Bad Boys 3 is in the works. With the announcement of the release date of Transformers 4 with Michael Bay as directing, a release for Bad Boys 3 has been pushed back until 2015. I think that's fine with me. If it happens, it happens. That's great. I think it's great if Will and Martin both sign back on. Obviously, Martin said it. Martin's confirmed. I don't know if Will is confirmed or not. But I think that's okay as far as like not having it before because Transformers 4 comes out next year, supposedly. So I mean that there's next year for Transformers 4, and then I think it's kind of fitting that they do Bad Boys 3 20 years after the first film. So I'm perfectly fine with that if and when it happens.
I think a big sign for me is if I want that movie, it's actually going to come out this year. Is a film that's going to come out this year is Pain and Gain, because it seems like Michael Bay is trying to get back to that similar type of style. With it's more about these two characters and it's less about the special effects. So I'm curious if that movie works, if you can get it to work with those two actors, which is going to be The Rock and Mark Wahlberg. I think that would be a good sign if Bad Boys 3 could work. Who knows if it will? Because who knows if Will Smith wants to go back down that road? It seems like he's getting less. He's kind of becoming more behind the camera, more producing.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, a 20-year anniversary of that movie would be a perfect time for that to come out.
Yeah. I think if they do, I don't know, I haven't seen any behind the scenes or anything or, whatever as far as like what the script looks like. But if they write a script that has them, what would you say Mike and Marcus's ages are in the first two films? Anywhere between 30 to 40 maybe?
Well,
somewhere in those 10 years.
I would say the first one, they seem like they're detectives, so they've had been doing it for a good while. I would say late 20s and maybe mid 30s in the second film, maybe a little older. I don't know.
Okay, because I'm thinking if they make them like mid 40s in the third film, and somehow say, oh my God, it's been a 20 year, somehow have a plot relying around the fact of, oh my God, we've had a 20-year career, 20, 30 year, 40, well, however long their friendship would be, obviously, if they're 40 years old, if, somewhere around a 30 or 40 year friendship, and somehow just don't rely on if the third one has a drug plot in it, I don't even know if I'll see it in the theater, because just looking at the first two films, they're both drug plots. I want them to do something else. I want them, if maybe pull a Lethal Weapon, make them captains, make them do something out of their norm that they don't normally do. Make them go after serial murderers, or make them go after, something different than what we have in these two films, at the same time paying homage to the fact that it's been 20 years since the first film.
Would you want them to stay in Miami? Like the first two films have been, we did mention that, but Miami's a big part of those two movies.
Yeah.
Would you want them to stay in the same setting, or would you be okay if they went to someplace else?
It depends. Maybe you've got a movie where Mike is still in Miami, but Mark is somewhere after Bad Boys 2, even though they resolved it at the end of the film. Say something else happened in 20 years or 30 years or whatever it is, and say that, Mark is made good and said, oh, I'm transferring out, and maybe he's out in California. So, don't do it like what Rush Hour did, where, oh my God, one film we have to be here. The next film, have it somewhere where they have to reunite if they have split up, whether it's reuniting in Miami or, honestly, if they did something like what, and I know this is going to be bad for me to reference, but CBS television did crossovers between Walker, Texas Ranger and Martial Law when those two series were on television, where Sammo Hung had to go to Texas and then Walker had to go to LA. So maybe something to where maybe Mike has to go out to LA to save Marcus, and maybe part of that investigation leads them back to Miami somehow. Whatever the investigation is. I just don't want it to be a regular drug plot. That's the only thing I don't want. I don't care what else they do to it. Hell, they could, if Michael wanted to, he could put some transforming trucks in there. I don't care. Just do something other than drug lord plots, please.
Yeah, I'd be okay with it. I guess you have an issue with the drug thing. That, I don't know. To me, the plot was so inconsequential to the movie, but I'd be fine if they went something different. Maybe cyber terrorism, or something more regarding something maybe a little grittier, or if besides just being maybe some type of murder or something like that they have to figure out. But as long as they can get Martin Lawrence and them back, and perhaps some of those smaller, like Joey Esposito and some of the other parts, I'd be fine with it. So I'm curious if it's going to happen, if it is going to happen, like what exactly they're going to do with it. So.
All right, we're going to head to a quick ad break. We're going to come back to close the show after this.
This is 80s action sensation Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm here to tell you about the podcast I produced called Punisher Body Count. It's the net's best Punisher podcast. Well, don't take my word for it. Listen to the hosts. Punisher Body Count is a work in progress. To listen to this great show, you can find us on iTunes. Just search Punisher Body Count, or come to our website, PunisherBodyCount.com.
The Pull Bag is the GCRN's place for everything you need in the comic book world. We focus on new and current comics, while also tackling a few back issues here and there. So join the entire GCRN crew and see what issues the hosts have with today's panels. You can find the Pull Bag on iTunes and GeekCastRadio.com. Make your great escape into comics.
Kid? Yes. Shut up.
Beyond the Night is the GCRN's latest review podcast. We are covering everything in the Knight Rider television universe, from the classic 80s TV series to the 1991 reunion film, Team Knight Rider, and the 2008 relaunch series as well. So join TFG and Mike and Dion the Music Man as they go in-depth and Beyond the Night only on Geekcast Radio Network. You can find Beyond the Night in iTunes and on www.geekcastradio.com.
Kid? Yes, Michael. Just keep driving.
Vargas! Get out! Abort! We're not gonna make it to the tunnel. Go to Plan B. We're going to Plan B. What Plan B? You don't pay attention to shit. What the thing?
The Russian Grim Reaper is here.
All right, we are back. Final thoughts on the Bad Boys franchise, sir.
I think the Bad Boys films are two movies. Even if you're not a big Michael Bay fan, you can enjoy. It's Michael Bay, maybe not as crazy as we remember him from the Transformers movie, especially the first one. If you're a fan of Will Smith in any regards, I think these are two of probably his most notable films, and they're basically just really fun action movies. Yes, the plot have issues, they may go on for too long, and the comedy doesn't always work, but they're really fun films. They're classic buddy cop, but kind of with a 90s edge and the early 2000s edge to them. So
yeah, very awesome. Yeah, I would say that if you are a Will Smith fan, you'll like these movies. Even if you're a Martin Lawrence fan, you'll like that, the kind of comedy that he brings to them. I'm hoping that when Bad Boys 3 does happen, that they get as many cast members from the second one back. The cast of the second movie, okay, not counting Tay Leone, she was okay in the first movie, but the cast of the second movie is so good. Even though we may not know a lot of those people, like the white guy with the beard in the mortuary scene, he's like, "Hey, you guys take those bodies to the morgue yet? You said Spanish Palms Mortuary." "No, you dumb fuck." I like that white guy, and I like pretty much all of the actors. This movie, Bad Boys 2, the second film to me is almost like Enemy of the State, where you have Will Smith at a center role, you got Gene Hackman also in a center role, and you've got like John Voight and all of these other actors. In Enemy of the State, you've got Jake Busey, Gary Busey's son. You've got Seth Green. You've got Jack Black. You've got all these other actors that do so well in those supportive type of roles. You know what I mean? And I think that if they bring the majority of the second film's cast back in Bad Boys 2 for Bad Boys 3, it's going to make a really interesting movie, depending on what the plot would be. But I love these first two films. The comedy bits and the quotes in the first film are absolutely hilarious. I was looking for and reading quotes on IMDb earlier, and just reading the stuff and just hearing in my head what the actors say, and it's like, oh my god, I can't stop laughing. It's just so awesome. So, we hope you enjoyed this episode of M-Wire, and wish you'll join us next time when we will continue the 90s flashback with episode 96, Jerry, Show Me the Motherfucking Money Maguire. For now, I am DF2 and Mike with
Movie Revolt Dan.
Thank you for listening. Keep those film reels rolling.
Already you breaking her heart? What the hell are you talking about? Was she not good enough for you, Mike?
Sid! Mike said you ain't shit!
Now, why would you scream out some crazy nonsense like that? You know, Mike, I don't appreciate you coming over here, all right, disrespecting me in my new pool. I bought your new pool. You know what? Why don't you hook this pool up to your Ferrari and drag this motherfucker out of here?
First of all, I was just joking with you. Second of all this right here, smell yourself right now. Because this moment is what the fuck is wrong with you.
You know what, Mike? I got the transfer papers in the trash can. I'll go get them and glue them the fuck up.
Glue them up, Marcus.
What? You want some glue?
And then we don't be partners no more. I got glue in the car.
I'm on a ride. I'm talking to you. It's hot than a motherfucker. I feel like I'm cooking in this motherfucker. And I gotta hear some shit out of you. And then on top of that shit, you gonna dog my baby sister?
Oh, this is that bullshit.
I kept the warranty. I kept the warranty.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? And there's those mucking dice stickers, no. Hey, bad boy, bad.
Hey, come on, man. You gotta learn the words. Mike, you don't know the damn words either. Okay?
Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
You've just listened to Movie Weekend Review on GeekCastRadio.com. If you would like to leave feedback on the show, there are many ways to do so. First, you can visit the website, GeekCastRadio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. Be sure to rate our show on iTunes and leave us feedback. You can follow us on Twitter at GCRN_MWire. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can email us at feedback@geekcastradio.com. Call the voicemail line 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you're leaving the message for and your name. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.
In a world, there, I said it, happy